Hey everyone, it's Sonia here. So I feel like I owe you guys a bit of an update. I know I don't owe you anything, but I feel like, well, you guys are my friends and I don't want to disappear on you. So I'm going to let you know what's going on. So as you probably know, my mother, Edith, passed away on actually the 18th of August. So I just want to give you an update about what happened and what's going on now. The first thing I want to say to you guys is thank you so much for all your kind words and for all your prayers. It really means a lot to me. I actually told you guys on YouTube and never announced it on Facebook. So go figure why I would feel like I want to share it with you and not even the people that I know like personally. Well, there was a few reasons, but I felt like, I don't know, I feel like you guys are my friends and I wanted to share it with you. And I really appreciate the support because you did give me a lot of support, and bless your hearts. Thank you so much. So my mother, as you probably know, had a long struggle with dementia starting around 2017. And, for the last 6 months, since about December, she had deteriorated quite a bit. Like she started having trouble walking, like she was leaning to one side, and that was happening more and more. And then right before I went on vacation, she had developed a problem where she was having trouble sitting up. She was leaning to the side, so they put her in a wheelchair. And right before I left, the last time I was there, we looked at an album of pictures together, and she couldn't really talk very much at this point. I mean, if she did talk, it didn't really make much sense. But she was enjoying looking at the album with me, and she could still say things like yes, or it's good, or it's beautiful, So we had like kind of a normal visit that day, even though she was, having trouble sitting up. I went to New Jersey with Gunnar, as you know. And when I came back, she was okay when I came back, but like a few days after I came back, I was told that she had stopped eating. So I went up there. I mean, let's see, I came back around the 5th. I can't remember the timeline exactly, but what happened was she had been eating less and less. Actually, yes, right when I came back, I was told like she's been eating less and she had lost weight. So then a little bit later, I was told that she's refusing solid food. I went up to see her, and this was probably the most shocking visit for me. This was the hardest. She was sitting in the day room in the wheelchair, and her mouth was like sort of hanging open, and I thought, oh my God, she looks terrible, and I think she's going to pass away soon. And I just was crying. It was awful. I felt like, like a child. Like I was like, Mommy, wake up, Mommy, wake up, And there was nobody, like no staff around at this time. So then after I did go to see the staff in the nursing station, and I was like, what's going on with my mother? And they said to me though, oh, well, sometimes she's really tired and other times she's more alert. And they tried to reassure me, but I felt like in my heart, I knew that she's not going to be with us for very long. And they did say she was refusing solid food. So I got her to drink some Resource, which is like Ensure, and also some juice. And I thought, well, okay, she's not eating, but she is drinking, so she's still getting nutrition. But I knew that day that this doesn't look good at all. So I left and I cried a lot. I felt like I was grieving already. And the next day I couldn't come for some reason. The day after that, they told me she won't drink. So if you tried to give it to her, she would literally just spit it out. And they seemed to think that she had forgotten how to swallow, but I never believed that. Because, I mean, even before, like, she was refusing to drink sometimes, but she could actually swallow. She didn't want it. She was spitting it out. I went up there with Gunnar, and that's when I posted the photos. And she was still like awake and alert and like responding to us, and she was drinking from like a little sponge. I would put the sponge in her mouth, or Gunnar would do it, and she would like bite on it, suck and swallow. So we were up there a long time trying to just keep her mouth moist and give her what we could. And I can't remember exactly, like it did become kind of a blur, but I feel like that was the last time that I was really like with my mother as, you know, as her being present. I was trying to be very positive, you know, so I complimented her on her beautiful hot pink blouse. She loved her clothes so much, you know, she was a big fashionista, and I said, oh, you look so beautiful in your pink blouse, and I was like, you know, it's me, it's Sonia, I'm here, look who Gunnar is here, and you look so beautiful. And she gave me this little smile, and that was the last smile she ever gave, and it was for her being happy on me complimenting her clothes, which is kind of makes me laugh because that was so her, you know. So like even to the very end, and that smile was so precious for me, even though it was just like a little ghost of a smile. It was just like, you know. And that was the only time that she spoke also, was when I complimented her on her clothes. And when I said, Gunnar's here, and she said yes. That was the last time that I interacted with her. And I felt like my job was just to reassure her and make her as comfortable as possible. I had to go home then to feed everybody, so Gunnar and I went home. And then I came back the next day alone, and she was really like, you could really see that she was actively dying. I mean, her mouth was like open, it was very dry, she had not been drinking. I started giving her the water. I realized at this point, like, there's no turning back, like she is going to pass, but I just wanted her to be comfortable. So I was giving her the sponge, and she was still grabbing it with her teeth and sucking, and I just kept moistening her mouth, and it must have been there for about 6 hours. I just kept talking to her and stroking her hair and like brushing her hair and just whatever I could do, just keeping her company. And she managed to drink half a glass of juice through the sponge. And she was sort of half awake at this point. Like, she would still open her eyes, she would look around. Sometimes it seemed like she was looking at me, other times it was like she was not tracking me. And I felt like I could have stayed there all night, you know, but eventually I had to go home. The third day I came back, and I knew like she's really going to pass very soon. She was like almost asleep. They had given her some kind of a tranquilizer, midazolam, or I don't know what. They gave her a little bit because she was like having these like jerky movements, and she was a bit agitated. Actually, the first day she was more agitated. She kept like touching things. She had the oxygen thing on, and the second day they gave her a bit more or something like that. The third day she wouldn't even drink from the sponge, and she wouldn't respond to me, and I knew like this was going to be the last time I saw her alive. And I was there for many hours, and I finally had to go. But she was calm at that point. She was actually sleeping when I left, and all I could do was just keep her company and play the classical music and moisten her mouth, even if she wasn't drinking anymore. I just did what I could. I talked to her. But I think towards the end of my visit that day, she was like in a coma, you know, and she just kind of closed her eyes, and she was like sleeping when I left. And I knew that it was going to be like in the next, you know, day. And I went home, and I Googled like, what is the most likely time for someone to pass away? Because I wanted to be there if it was possible. And Google said 11 o'clock, and I thought, I'm going to get up and I'm going to be there for like the morning. And the crazy thing was, I woke up naturally at 9:30, just by myself, no alarm. And that would have been enough time for me to get showered and dressed and go. But I was so tired, because in these 3 days that this was happening, I wasn't able to sleep. I would sleep like 4 hours. I just had like insomnia. So I wasn't really thinking straight. So when I woke up, I kind of forgot that I was supposed to be up there for 11. I don't know what I was thinking. And then at 11:30 they called me, and they told me that she had passed away. And I thought, it's like, did she know that I was trying to come at 11? She hung on. I wasn't there when she died, but she was already in a coma. But I feel like maybe she tried, I don't know. But I missed it. But I was like, okay, you know, it's all right. When I finally got there, the morning that she'd passed away, I came into the room, and she was lying there, passed away. And I have to tell you guys, what struck me was she looked amazingly beautiful. She was lying on her back with her hands like this, and her face was completely smooth. She was 89 years old, but that in death, like, there were absolutely no lines. Everything was like all relaxed and smooth. And she looked like she was, 20 years younger or maybe even more. It was just unbelievable. The only thing that made it look like she was dead was that her mouth was sort of open. But her face, like, oh, she was beautiful even to the end. Even in death, she was beautiful. I mean, I don't know if you needed to know like the whole thing of how it played out. I just kind of wanted to tell you because I've been making these videos about Alzheimer's, and I've been telling you like how her disease progressed. And I know that for me, like when I was going through this with my mother, I would look for other people's experience to know like what's next. I mean, we never really know what's coming next, but we kind of want a hint. I think it helps us feel more secure. Maybe it helped me kind of know like what to expect. So I wanted to understand like, what is the progression, and like what am I going to expect for what will happen, and how is she going to pass away in the end. Mostly they say they do forget to swallow and they end up with pneumonia, or they have a fall maybe sometimes, but mostly they forget to swallow and they just get pneumonia. Well, in her case, it wasn't that. In the end, actually, she passed away from her kidney disease, which she had had since she was a child. During World War II, she was like almost starved. Like she was suffering from starvation, and she developed a kidney infection, and she almost passed away at that time. But she recovered, and she recovered very well, actually, because they thought she would never have children and all this stuff. But she did have kids, but all her life, her kidney function was a bit low. And then as she got older, it was a bit lower. And then this was another thing they had told me when I was up there and I was talking to the nurses, was that the last few weeks her kidney function was going down. So I think what happened to my mother actually was her kidneys started to crap out on her, and that's why she was naturally like becoming more tired, and then she was refusing food and drink because her kidneys weren't working. So, even though she had dementia, in the end, it wasn't directly the dementia that, led to her passing. It was her kidneys, and she was 89 years old, so it's actually quite a long life, and I'm grateful for the time that we had together. So I hope maybe it's helpful to someone out there who's dealing with the same kind of situation. I hope my videos help in some way. So I wanted to tell you about how she passed, and after she passed, like, part of me was relieved, to be honest, that she wasn't suffering anymore. But at the same time, like, all my grief just came out, because to be honest, like, I felt like I had lost her a long time ago. Ever since she had her disease, it was like, she wasn't really herself anymore. And there was a loss, and it was like this incremental loss that just kept getting bigger and bigger. But it was like after she passed, like, I just cried and cried for like 3 days. Like, everything reminded me of her everywhere I went, and I had to deal with all her stuff again. And it was like all my grief that I'd been holding in all this time, it was like just, it was coming out. I felt so lost after she died. Even though she was like basically like a shadow of herself for all these years. But it was just the weirdest feeling. I just felt so lost. Like, I just had this like instinctive sort of primal or whatever feeling of like just feeling lost, and feeling like my whole life was turned upside down. Even though like she was just in a retirement home and she was sick. Sorry, now I'm crying. I don't even have any Kleenex, but I'm just telling you, this is what happened. This is where I was at. And at the same time, like, I was like, okay, well, she's not suffering anymore, and I hope that she's with my father. And then, look, there was one more thing that I want to tell you about, like, but I feel like kind of like it should be another video, but you guys know that I had this like vision way in advance about her death, which it's in a video. I talked about it last year when she had that close call with the bleeding. And you can see that I had said that she had told me way before, but it was actually like a dream, but it was like a lucid dream, which I have sometimes. And it's always like surrounding people's death. It's like this kind of thing that I have where it's either somebody who is going to die, has a close call, just died, or is in the process of dying, and like it's like I believe it's like I see them like in another level, like on a spirit world or something. And so I'd had one of those with my mother where she said to me, this is the day that I die. And she showed me the vision that she was in a hospital bed and that it was summer. It was like the time of the festival. So I always believed she was going to die like July or August, and it was her kidneys. And yeah, she was like in a hospital bed with the gown. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. So I felt grateful that I was prepared, because imagine like all this time I never worried about her in the winter, and in the summer I was always prepared that this is going to be it. And that's exactly what happened. And I felt like it was a gift that I was shown that, to prepare me. And the good news is that my communication with her continues. So like, look, I'm having tears, but at the same time, I just had another experience like that a couple nights ago, which was amazing. And I guess I'll go more into this because I don't want this to be too long, where I got to see my mother and I got to talk to her, and it was just amazing. Like, I feel like her spirit is still there. Like, she's not here. She is in the afterlife. But it's not, I mean, yes, it leaves a hole here, but how can I say, like, it's like she's still there for me in a way. I'll tell you more about it next time, so I guess I'm going to leave you hanging. Yeah, I did get to see her. I saw my dad like that also twice after. And so now I get to see my mom, so that's awesome. I feel like I'm allowed to see her sometimes, so very, very happy about that. And I'll tell you more about it next time. Anyway, so now I feel like okay with it. Like, I feel really like resolved with it. I don't understand all this, like the spiritual stuff and, you know, how this works, but I've come to just sort of accept it, because before I used to think that I was just kooky and I was imagining things, but because they match up very much with like real life, I realized that is like a spiritual gift. And so now I'm just grateful for it, you know? So now I'm okay. I'm okay. And my mom is in, I guess, a good place. And I look forward to seeing her again. And I'll let you know like what happened and what I said to her next time, because this is getting really, really long. So that's it, you guys. Thank you again so much for being there and for caring about my mom. And yeah, I'll see you soon.